Hello. Uh, this is just okay. So I I don't know. Is this fixed? I hope it's fixed. Oh, my notepad is gone. Where's my notepad? Notepad. There we go. I decided to do some tweaking and unlist all the streams videos. Still can be watched, but not gonna be part of my main channel because there's a lot of stuff. I can dox myself sometimes. Which, no, it doesn't really dox. But yeah, just annoying a little. Ouch, my. Oh, my eyes. That feels so good. I need to wake someone up in an hour 30. So, yeah, that's the point of me taking the breaky, wakey, but still continuing to stream. So, yeah. Hello, white people. Hello, fellow white people. Welcome to stream. Hi, Odds. Hi. White. Both are. Hello. Yes. Shit. I forgot what I was talking about. Yeah, I'm going to wake someone up in an hour 30, and then we'll continue stream. It's just going to be a little break, probably. And yes, let's continue studying, shall we? Show. There we go. We were talking about hermeneutic circle and stuff. Game is members of player community are to be. Have I already read this? Cultural taboos. We are doing the first discussion. Wait, no. Where am I? Oh wait, no, I found it. There are cultural taboos and there are firm beliefs that cannot be overlooked by commitment to the game world. Being a player is maintaining a part of what makes us moral beings. Yes, especially talking about Custer Revenge, which he was talking back then. And then, ooh, yeah, first discussion. Let's not talk about that yet. Then I say hi to you odds, but I'm a being of possessing all-consuming darkness. Cool, pop, okay. Thumbs up. Understandable. This is not to say that there is an easily distinguishable boundary between the player as subject and the self. Wait, what? This is not to say there is an easily distinguishable boundary between the player as subject and the self from which the subject originates. So it's not easy to actually differentiate the players and the self of the self that is playing as a player, because, well, it's both tied together. So yeah, it is not possible to place an arrow pointing at the limits between the two ways of experiencing reality. I've argued that a player comes into being only when immersed in a game experience, and by game experience, Miguel is talking not just when you're playing game. It starts when you start playing game or playing other game of the same type of genre, but it stays to exist even when you stop playing the game, like you're interacting with a player community and stuff like that. Then hi to you, specifically being a pulsating, all-consuming darkness. My laptop is hella tweaking right now. What happened to your laptop? Why is it working? Oh no. You're restarting the laptop. No, let it work. You should let your laptop work. Have you all considered, like, that we should start making more syrup of, like, from national dishes? You know, like, Canadian have maple syrup, but, like, why do they stop there? Why don't they, like, make poutine syrup? Which kind of similar to the name of someone that is horrible. That potato thing. Or maybe, like, what are national dishes that countries have? I don't know. Sushi syrup? That'll be crazy. What's up with it? Did you run a mem test? Oh, never mind. Oh, are you speaking about Altsaki? Yes, where was I again? I forget that players come to being, There we go. Be that playing the game or participating as a member of a game community, which I already explained. When not in any of the situation, there is no active player subjectivity. We are not looking at the world with the eyes of a player. So Miguel separates it as, I assume, there's active and passive. Passive player subjectivity. Or there might not even be any passive or active player subjectivity. There might be just, like, active player subjectivity and non-active player subjectivity. Inactive player subjectivity. Of which, probably inactive would be a much better term compared to active. Because passive implies that the players still participate passively, unknowingly, subconsciously in the game community, which I don't think... No, it wouldn't fit Miguel's description. Probably inactive would be fitting much more better. I'm back! Cheers! What changed in the world while I was gone? I was talking about sushi syrup and poutine syrup and... I don't know, what else is national dishes? Gosh, my... Kimchi syrup. Yes, is kimchi from Korean, Japan, or China? Huh. I think they're actually arguing about whether or not kimchi comes from Japan or... Let's see. Kimchi. Kimchi is cabbage, as far as I know. Kimchi is a traditional Korean side dish, yes. It says in Wikipedia. 1996 kimchi standard dispute with Japan. Yeah, see? There's a kimchi ingredient price crisis? Wow. Kimchi Day. Effective ban by China of Korean kimchi imports. What? Why there's a kimchi boycott in China? A 2007 articles in the New York Times said that anti-Korean sentiment. Oh, okay. Huh. Okay, wait. And there's a for begin. Yeah. I was right. I was right. They are actually fighting. So Japan, China, and Korea is fighting over who owns the right to kimchi. Oh my god, that's so silly. Since this syrup sounds so nasty, it could be a grindcore band name. Yeah, it's actually so great. I think it'll be a great band name. The Kimchi Wars. Yeah, exactly. It's a Kimchi Wars. They're fighting for like the right to own kimchi. That's so funny. Sushi sauce? No, I prefer sushi syrup. So yeah, Miguel. I think Miguel is saying that there is active and inactive player subjectivity rather than passive or active player subjectivity, of which the active what just happened? Of which the active implies what? Active implies that no, not implies. Active refers to when we are playing a game, and or interacting with the player community, whether we are like watching a YouTube video talking about Undertale theory, why Ness is Sans and Sans is Ness, or whether we are hopping on in a Discord server or Undertale, or whether or not, let's see, what else? We're just writing a fanfic. That's what community is for Miguel. Community and inactive, which I'm not sure. Does he mention anything about inactive? Or I'm just making the terms up. I'm making that terms up. But I think it's appropriate for this situation. Does he actually not mention anything about it? Oh, alright. Probably not, because if it is, I will have known, because I took note of almost the entire book. That's why it's helpful to like take notes like this, because like sometimes you need word by word to check whether or not they actually refers to it like this or that, which is important. Interacting with regularity and inactive refers to using this. This is a standard of like adding context or shits. Basically, hey, this is not written by the author, but it's written by you. This is a standard thing that it's a bracket. Is it a bracket? It's a square bracket, right? That's the name of it. Is it? Yeah, it's a square bracket. And inactive refers to when we are playing a game, and or not interacting with the player community. Oh. There is no active player subjectivity. We are not looking at the world with the eyes of a player. This distinction, as with many operational tools in philosophy, is hard to prove empirically, and hard to prove it empirically, huh? And yet it is logically sound and analytically productive. Philosophy usually plays in the realm of like, we don't really have we still don't have enough study to prove it or not, but like, we are just trying to theorize shits around here. Which maybe later the study will prove it is, but currently, no, we don't have anything. Now the book is engraved into your brain. Hell yeah. And you need to do that because if you'll do academic learning like this, you'll probably get into issues later on whether or not you actually appropriately says what's actually being stated by the uh, folk. No, no, not folk. By the thinker, by the academic, yeah, by the academic, because like if you misrepresent it, misinterpret it, it could be. Yeah. No, actually, it's fine to misinterpret it. No, it's not fine. It's hard to tell misinterpretation or not. Rather, like if you what do you call it? If you didn't refer to it properly, it could lead to some problem. Like, hey, actually, Nietzsche was woke, and then people gonna quote, "Hey, Nietzsche wasn't woke." You could check almost a lot of Nietzsche writing that Nietzsche is anti-Semite, but like, it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to be honest. I'm just saying that like you need to know shits like that. Community. I'm lost. There's a player subject who is evaluated by a cultural embodied moral being who has accepted the rules of a game, thus becoming a subject but never losing its presence. Being a player is also being evaluated by who we are as a moral embodied cultural beings. This whole process of interpretation, starting with zero subject faithful to the game and ending in the dialogue between the player subject and the moral being, constitute the ludic hermeneutic circle. Zero subject faithful to the game refers to the not the blank state. Miguel specifically said that it's not a blank. Doesn't really refer to the blank state of behaviorism. You could say zero state is when we exactly have zero experience with the game and we haven't started playing the game yet. We just just touch it. Actually, if player like Miguel argues that the game that we start being a player when we start playing the game. However, based on his description, you could say that we could start being a player when we interact with the game community because we have a prior knowledge of things. I never thought of that. I could ask about that later. Can we be a player subject when we haven't started the game yet and just interacts with the community? Blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, zero subject faithful to the game and ending in the dialogue between the player subject and the moral being constitute the ludic hermeneutic circle. The hermeneutic circle is the circle of interpretation and reinterpretation of the books. It was for books first. It was for no. It was it for books. I'm not sure. It was for whatever phenomenon that you were like observing, interacting with, experiencing. That's the word, experiencing, and you learn about but you're aware of the phenomenon. The phenomenon gives you new awareness, and then you have a new realization, and then it continues forward and forward like a circle, right? You keeps building it. So there's a dialogue between the player when they're playing the game with the game, and it Miguel says ludic because it's specific for the game situation because it's a playful experience, playful building of the whole experience. Making no sense. What about marketing? What do you mean about marketing? Question mark? Yeah, community. You're already making choices about game when you look at the marketing. Oh, okay. When we're talking about the player thing, huh? Yeah. I wonder that about that as well. Miguel actually, you know what? Maybe not. Maybe it's not possible. Like we can. No, we cannot really become a player until we experience the game ourselves. We can interact with the community to maybe get insight about the game, but we are still not player subject. More like player subject. That's much more of a word. Okay, because okay, yeah. Because like the game community itself cannot exist without the game. Okay, cool. But this is human game. This I have something. Something. Perhaps. No, the main point is interacting with the game, so probably not. It can be argued that I have only depicted the harmonious side of the ludic hermeneutic circle, and that there are players who actually engage in deviant gameplay and enjoy doing so, harassing other players, cheating and griefing. Yes. Depicted the harmonious side. Yeah, I was criticizing that a lot, but we'll see where you bring this, Miguel. Huh. Wait. Shit, I must. That is where the importance of player community manifests itself. An individual may develop a judgment of herself in a game in which griefing and cheating are acceptable. On the other hand, okay, so player community defines ethics or informs the ethic. I'm gotta make notes and plan for tomorrow's work. Okay, yeah. Thank you for attending for now. Define ethics. See ya. On the other hand, the player community, historically speaking, tends to treat cheaters. So based on historicism? Historically speaking, tend to treat cheaters and griefers as elements of disruption who need to be avoided or punished for the well-being of the community. This does not mean that the community players consist of zealous defenders of the gaming orthodoxy. The player community consists of players who collectively and historically have developed a sense of sportsmanship and values that good players, both in skill and moral, should sport. The game community is effectively powerless. They can cast away players, but they cannot influence, punish, or reward them. Influence? A much better word. No, they cannot influence, punish, or reward them. What's the better word? Not influence, then. Suggest? Suggest the ethic. The ethics. The value. That's much more better. That needs to behave as a player. Is hate not a word? It's not a word. Based on historicism? All based on historicism. Cool. Unless the game designer has included the game community as an institution inside the game structure. Example is the Pharaoh, Egypt. Up. Oh. Nope. Pyramid. Nope. I think I forgot. I forgot what the game was it. It was like relative to Egypt or something. I could be really wrong. Yeah, where the player community is important, probably what's the example? Among Us? Among Us actually have a strong player community, so yeah. When you're playing the game. And the procedure of interpretation of the game along with the actions of the player within the game and the community and her relation to real life is what creates the ludic process that informs the virtuous player. Okay, I'm gonna write that. A dialogic procedure of interpretation of the game along with the actions of the player within the game and the community and her relation to real life is what creates the ludic phronesis that informs the virtuous player. This includes capacity of experiencing the game within the dialogic interpretational procedures of the ludic hermeneutic circle. Experiencing the game within the dialogic interpretational procedures. Okay, cool. Capacity of experiencing the game within the dialogic interpretational procedures of the ludic hermeneutic, not hermeneut, circle. Bingo. Ludic phronesis is the ethical interpretation that takes place in the described stage of the ludic hermeneutic circle. It is a character trait and a knowledge that we develop. So that's it. It's a practical wisdom, which is it's a character trait. And what? Character trait and a knowledge that we develop. Learning to play game as an interpretational process of who we are and how we behave is the process of developing the moral reasoning. Because game operates in the circle of interpretation, we can have political and ideological game. The player develops a moral reflection of her action that is somehow processed and evaluated by her real-life values. Okay. Because player operates in this circle of interpretation, and they have real life values and evaluation process interesting improve the moral nature of the game. The player action is some percent of her the evaluation process intrinsic to the game and a proof of moral nature of computer games. I see. Values. Because players are it makes no. We can have political and ideological games, which is a proof of the moral nature of computer games. This is the model of the ludic hermeneutic circle, and what's the model? Let's see. Individual player, player repertoire, experience, and ludic phronesis. To the player community. To the player community first. Player repertoire experience. Okay, individual player. This exists in the game circle, so actually, yeah. So when we are playing game, we start referring to the player community about shits, game community, community values, player involvement in the community, and then to subject external to the game, of which or cultural, ethical, values, present, personal history. Personally, I would switch that, or maybe that. I will switch that location. And to the game, object, design, affordances, and constraint. I would actually put the subject external to the game first, and then we, as a subject, we view ourselves as a player, and then as a player, we involved with the game community, and then, yeah, okay, game object, design, affordances, and constraint per subject. The ethics of computer game are the results of the ludic hermeneutic circle, that kind of game experienced by a moral agent who reflect upon their actions and upon the design of the game using their ludic phronesis. Yes, ludic phronesis, I was correct. I was guessing. The ethic of a computer game according to virtue ethics. Understanding the ethic of a computer game from a virtue ethic perspective gives player a great amount of responsibility when it comes to dealing with moral issues in computer games. A common mistake when analyzing the ethical dilemmas of computer game pose is to consider the player as a passive element, abandoned by her moral intuitions in a labyrinth demiurgically created by the game developer. Refers to demiurgos, which is, I forgot what demiurgos is. Demiurge. What is demiurge? Demiurgic. I forgot. The demiurge, sometimes spelled as demiurge, is an artisan responsible for fashioning and maintaining the physical universe. That doesn't really help. Plato. It was Plato that was about it. As the entity who fashioned and shaped the material world. Timaeus described the demiurge as unreservedly benevolent, and so it desires a world as good as possible. Yes. Created so other lower gods. Okay. So it's basically the creationist? No, it's not a creationist theory, isn't it? Virtue labyrinth demiurgically created by the game developers. Okay, so you're basically referring to game developers like the gods of who create the games. Which, you know what? Yeah. Virtue ethics challenges this perspective, situating morally aware players in active dialogue with the game, a process made possible by the player who is responsible for the ethical nature of the game experience in which she willingly engage. Players are the bearers of computer game ethics, the act of playing computer games being a matter of interpretation within virtue. Individually, I should probably write that one, actually. The act of playing a computer. Commuter? No, please. We're developing the police computer now. Call it the computer. Computer games being a matter of interpretation within virtue. Individually, players are affected by the game design. To play a game means to initially accept the affordances and constrain the game presence. In this process, players come into being, they become an ethical subject capable of reflecting on the in-game choices and strategies. A player experiences a game in a ludic hermetic circle, a process. So this is probably answered as no. Nope. I need to change the answer. Players come into being, they become an ethical subject. In this process, players come into being, they become an ethical subject capable of reflecting on the in-game choices and strategies. A player experiences a game in a ludic hermetic circle, a process of procedural moral interpretation of the game experience. Player experience a game in a ludic hermeneutic circle. This process is also a dialogue between the player as a moral being and a game. In this dialogue, the player has not only to interpret the game, but also to provide ethical behaviors of her own to the experience. Therefore, an ethical game by design is that game in which the design system does not constrain the possibility for the player to afford ethical values into the gameplay experience. Those affordances have to be meaningful for the gameplay, relevant and agreed upon by other players. An ethical game is that which acknowledges, respects, and encourages the ethical being of computer game players. That's why Miguel was using 13 as a 13 the game as an example of like unethical game because oh yeah, you're an amnesiac assassin, but then you basically hey, you cannot shoot a cop. There's some incoherent stuff going on right now. The circle. Where's I? Those affordances have to be meaningful. Yeah. I already read this, aren't An ethical game is that which acknowledge, respect, and encourage the ethical being of computer games player. Yeah. This doesn't mean that a game has to be molded according to the values of its player, or that player ought to be free to choose whether ethics should rule in the game. The ethical dimension of the game as object, yeah. So ethic, it does not mean that ethic needs to be the main subject of every kind of game. The ethical dimension of the game as object, according to virtue ethics, relies on the openness of the system. A game by design, ought not to interfere with the ethical affordances that player may want to provide to the game, both on an interpretational level and a more practical level. Nevertheless, it could be argued that there are examples of games in which this openness does not happen, and yet they can be considered good games from an ethical point of view. Relies on the openness of the system. So, it can be open or closed. Yes. In the case of Manhunt, for example, the game designers perform a rhetoric design of subtle mastery. By being aware that player is a moral being, the game design reflects the game world, translating it into the game experience. More clearly, in Manhunt, the experience of the horrible actions the player has to commit is unavoidable, and the player is forced to go through that experience. It's a closed experience. There's no other way you could go around it. There is no making peace around it or something like that. Unlike Roblox, Roblox is a multitude of games. So maybe it's not a good example. Maybe what's like probably most sandbox game, which you can just be peaceful around and not doing shit. Maybe Minecraft, especially Minecraft Creative. Minecraft Story Mode, yeah, has a story you need to follow, but Minecraft Creative, after that. But also you can make your own goals. More clearly, in Manhunt, we experience the the experience of the horrible actions the player has committed is unavoidable, and the player is forced to go through that experience. Mayhem seems aware of the procedures of the ludic hermeneutic circles because the player cannot behave in any other way than committing those actions. Her experience matches that of the game fiction, thus creating a moral experience. This implies an open. Wait, I'm trying to understand this. Yeah, the player can behave in any other way. Experience matches the game fiction, thus creating a moral experience. Well, why does it has to match the game? Why does it has to match the game fiction again? Because then it will be incoherent, and then player would stop thinking in a rather hermeneutic circle way, and would be rather like, this doesn't make sense. Yeah, okay, cool. This implies an open path for political and satirical game, as well as for games used for social and political commentary. A game design implies an open path. May not want to let the player introduce ethical values into her gameplay. So, yeah, it opens the possibility of people making those sorts of game. A game design may not want to let the player introduce ethical values into her gameplay. Yeah. But that has to be done with a clear design plan in mind, being conscious that it will provoke a strong moral reaction in the player, an ethical awareness that may bring games the possibility for new forms of expression. Wait, there's a mosquito around. God damn it. Wait. Pause. Barely. Okay, then I was just finished committing a chemical warfare against the mosquitoes. I'm evil, you know. I always feel bad when I feel least bad for mosquitoes, but whenever I do it to like other ants or stuff like that, I always feel super bad. So I don't really hurt small creatures. Try to avoid it as much as I can. Super avoid it. Where was I? The possibility for political no, a strong blah, blah, blah. An ethical awareness that may bring games the possibility for new forms of expression. The possibility for political games lies here, acknowledging that there is a player with ethical capabilities and interests who is willing to engage in a ludic experience that will make her reflect on the actions she is taking within the game. Player will not be given information; they will experience the political dilemmas because they are active agents in the productions of meaning in the game. This War of Mine. That was a good one. Yeah, this War of Mine. That's an example of one. Or Paper Plates, actually, as an example of another one like that. Players will not be given information; they will experience the political dilemmas. Engage in the production of meaning games. The virtuous player engaged in gameplay conscious of the process of ethical interpretation. A virtuous player is defined as a moral being with the capacity to interpret and reflect on the game as object, on her behavior, on her presence in the game world and in the game community. A virtuous player develops and uses the player virtues and ludic critical wisdom when playing computer games. A kind of moral reasoning that takes into account its specific being and meaning within the game experience and acts upon those values. This is also a process of maturing, a process of developing the necessary ethical skill to ensure that the experience of the game is ethical. A player is responsible for her moral well-being in a game experience. As well as for the other values she enacts, and that responsibility came from the fact that when we're playing a game, we are striving to make ourselves better at playing the game. Unless we do not strive to make ourselves quote-unquote better and playing the game, then there's no responsibility and we could just like chill around. The player has to behave virtuously and develop the moral knowledge to do so. The virtuous... Okay, yeah, I can see your argument now, Miguel. Of why player has to behave virtuously. The virtuous behavior of a game player is that behavior which shows an understanding not of the best strategies and actions to win the game, but now I could argue against that. That's based on the history of like player community rejecting that actions to win the game, but of the gameplay process that ensures a satisfactory game experience. The ethical goal is to win by respecting the game and other player by doing what is best to preserve the engagement in the game. A player who decides not to engage in player versus player gameplay against weaker character in World of Warcraft, for example, is showing more reflection on the structure of the game. Her behavior is ethical by nature, sporting in her gameplay the virtues she believes the game must have. Same with people who intentionally go like, yeah, I'm gonna target a weaker player. That's actually also part of them engaging in their moral reflection of the game. Or a player who just like doesn't really care. That's also them engaging. But I guess this is a more inline way. More, a lot of people accept more than what do you call it? It's positive thing, which easier to digest in the sense of ethics. But players are seldom alone. The role of community in the development of the ethics of computer game is as important as the role of an individual player. Okay. Player communities have the responsibility of creating the implicit and afforded codes of interpretation. Implicit and afforded codes. Communities have the responsibility of creating the implicit and afforded codes of interpretation and conduct that define what a good thing is, thus placing those who disrupt the well-being of the game experience outside the moral goodness of the community. It's like, for example, if you jump into the speedrun community and say it's like speedrun poops. Yeah, that's an example of that. It's defined by the community. But Miguel defines community in the larger sense, of course. So, yeah. Not in a larger sense, more like the community that engage with it, actually. Huh, yeah. What a good game is. I'm lost. A game community has importance in the ethical communication of a game, how it is understood, and how ethical behaviors are enforced and respected by all the players. When an ethical issue arises, the player community should be able to provide answers and create open discussion, empowering their opinions and actions in their experience of the game. Problem comes in. Community should be able to provide answers and create open discussions. This is good. This is something that philosophy has been trying to strive for a while. Of like creating a space for discussion, space for everything, space for thoughts and stuff like that, which is good and great. However, I'm not denying it's important. I also push the importance of. However, what is my argument? Most of the time people are just, yeah, you know what, it's not a criticism against the space of discussion, more like criticism against how people understood and not understood, how are a lot of people afraid of discussing stuff, which I understand. A lot of stuff is kind of it's exhausting to discuss a lot of stuff. It's hard to find all the knowledge and recall all of them. It's blah 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 blah. It's what else? Sometimes terrifying. Don't say it. There's a terrifying aspect of it, of discussing shits, and a lot of stuff actually. For discussion. So yeah, sure, but is it possible? Yes, it's possible, but we have to develop a better player community for that. And a better community altogether. A player is responsible for her acts in a game, for the way she behaves, and for what she makes of the game in her experience of it. No? Wait, oh no, I was reading the wrong part. Empowering their opinions and actions in the experience of the game. Yeah. The player and the community then are partially responsible for game ethical values. Yeah. What the hell? Where am I? There we go. Player and the community are partially responsible. This is the important part for a game's ethical values. Together with the ethical design and constraint of the game, together with the affordances and constraints that the game may have in its design. A player is responsible for acting in a game for the way she behaves and for what she makes of the game and her experience of it. The ethical issues that a game can create are the responsibility of the player to the extent that the game designers have allowed players to create and afford their own values in the game. This is not to take away the importance of the design affordances, because the player as a subject is to some extent conditioned by those affordances. This still haven't talked about. Miguel puts the whole responsibility thing. Miguel, yeah, you know what? Yeah, actually, no. Players are partially responsible, so yeah, the developer has responsibility as well. Okay, you know what? No. This is not to take away the importance of the game design affordances. Yes, difficult issue. Because player subject is to some extent conditioned by those affordances. Yeah. In other words, design is relevant from this perspective because the game should foster the development of the player virtues. If it doesn't, from a virtue ethic perspective, we will be talking about an ethical game. So when you're playing a game, it doesn't like, wait, what do you call it? An ethical game is a game design with the. What about games with predatory monetization practice, microtransaction practice? So is that an ethical game? Because it gives affordances, yes. It gives a restriction. It gives an. What is that? Wait. You could argue it's ethical because it sparks your thugs to be like, what the fuck is this? This is not right for a game. Why is it unethical then? Besides, of course, obvious predatory monetization shit. But in this argument of Miguel, why is it unethical? Because the player community says no. Because what? Is it ethical affordances? It's more like unethical affordances. Yes. So yeah, Miguel talks about ethical affordances and constraints, but there are also unethical affordances and constraints that can also can result in a what? In a contradiction? Stop. What's the word for stop? What's the other word? Stop. In an abrupt stop of the ludic promises. We talks about ethical burdens and constraint, but we're also ethical burdens of constraint. What's unethical in this point? I'm trying to figure it out. There are constraints and shits that blatantly disregard the player. Why is it unethical? Because it's predatory system. Yes, I know it's unethical because it's a predatory monetary system. But why is it unethical in Miguel's sense? Because it, instead of promoting, oh yes, shit, yes. It's unethical because instead of promoting promoting what? Promoting instead of promoting ethical affordances, it's unethical because it's not promoting ethical affordances. That's stupid. It's unethical because because it's what? Because it undermines the player's subjectivity, the player subject. Why does it undermine the player subject? It tries to manipulate. Game design manipulates us as well, right? I'm trying to think hard. There's unethical because it's unethical because it doesn't add to the game experience, and instead, does it not add to the game experience? Microtransaction doesn't add to the game experience. Doesn't add. It's unethical. It's unethical affordance because it doesn't add to the game experience, and say and instead impose based on monetary situation rather than it imposes a limitation that are based on monetary situation, monetary condition rather than what? The game experience that customers that are based. So there's ethical, the non-ethical. You could say it doesn't speak about ethical, and then there's the unethical affordances and constraint. Everything is limiting because they are all affordances and constraint. Yes, and everything is a manipulative, quote unquote, because it's a design thing. But why is it unethical rather than waste unethical game design unethical? So not monetary as well. This is just talking about the characteristic monetary system. Okay, you know what? I'll just talk about it for now, right? Because I'm confused. Which is unethical because it doesn't add to the game experience. Instead, does it not add to the game experience? Does microtransaction doesn't add to the game experience? You could argue that it can add to the game experience. Yes, because like you can purchase this, you can purchase that. So no, actually, it took away of the game experience and instead locked it behind a paywall, and impose a limitation that are based on monetary condition rather than possible development of virtues. Was it different than the non-ethical affordances then? There's ethical affordances, there is non-ethical affordances, and there is unethical affordances. Miguel only talks about the ethical affordances. I'm creating other two types of affordances that is possible. The non-ethical, that doesn't speak about ethics at all, just the affordances that exist there, and the unethical ones, such as predatory monetization system, which I'm talking right now. Why is it unethical though, other than being predatory? Because it took away of the game experience, yes, and log it behind a firewall, and impose a limitation there based on matter condition rather than possible development of virtues. I was talking about how the non-ethical one is different from the. This could be a wrong term actually, because non and un or in ethical ways. Which one is which? I'm still not sure. Still thinking. That's what 40% of the modern gacha experience based on LOL. Does it only count if it forces you to pay? What do you mean? Does it only count if it forces you to play? Question mark. What do you mean? What counts only if it forces you to pay? You mean like, is it becomes unethical when it forces you to play? By that, I probably think still no, it's still unethical even if it doesn't force you to pay, because it locks the standard game experience behind the paywall and limits the player experience at first. But so impossible mediation there based on market condition rather than possible development features. I was thinking impossible development features, not ethical. The non-ethical affordances also doesn't promote the development of features, but it doesn't reduce it as well. Possibly inhibits development of virtues. There we go. That's why it's unethical. Because you can unlock most gacha content through grind. Even if you can do that, the concept of monetary monetization in game itself is pretty unethical. Still, it's still unethical, especially if it's predatory monetization. You know what? Maybe you can argue that it's maybe not unethical, but predatory monetization is definitely unethical when we are talking about. And there's a lot of game that does that. Even if it doesn't force you to buy stuff, it can. Games are design objects, all right, and as a design objects, it creates this labyrinth of systems that are guiding you or making you like, hey, look, this direction. Hey, go this direction. Hey, you should see this red dot right here. You should check the store. Oh wow. Sorry, I bumped my microphone. Oh wow, discount. Oh wow, shits like that. So yeah, even if it doesn't force you to exactly that, there's a design here that's try to behaviorally engineer people to purchase this, and usually they don't know they don't realize it's predatory, like because they don't realize that the issues because the price is obscured behind like several different in-game currencies and stuff like that, which the European Union is trying to address right now. I think I'm not really sure. I could be missing something because they try to make like the those transactions to be like having more tangible monetary values, right? So like you can see, hey, yeah, you buy this, you actually spend $5 for this, for example, instead of like you have to go through layers and layers of in-game currency to figure out how much is this. It can be definitely be predatory by design. I was just wondering what the course outlawed. Yeah, I was like saying it's predatory by design, but why is it unethical other than just being predatory, of course? And I was like arriving at a conclusion that it's unethical first because yes, it is predatory, and also because it locks the game experience behind a paywall, and then impose a limitation that are based on monetary condition rather than possible development of virtues, and possibility inhibits the development of those virtues, which Miguel were being talked about how ethical game how games that have ethical affordances, with those affordances, those create virtues and values. There we go. But also, hello, welcome. This is the first time I see you in this chat, right? And sorry, like no introduction. Like we immediately engage in the talks about predatory monetization. The best example of predatory monetization, probably the worst example. I'm not sure if that's the correct word, best or worst. What's the term of it? The par excellence, the most excellent. No, the top example of a predatory monetization system would probably be a lot of mobile games and also the Diablo Immortal. No, is it Diablo Immortal or Diablo 4? Either one of those. There's the videos that covers it. Oh yeah, lol, I mostly just watch VODs. Ah, yes, but welcome. Indecisive Ponderer. Should I call you Indecisive, or Ponderer, or Pawn, or Decisive? Decisive Strike, Indecisive Strike. Haha, Dead by Daylight. I have 10,000 hours in Dead by Daylight. No, I lied. I have 1,500 hours in Dead by Daylight. I know, Brainrot. I deserve to be executed. And then let's return to the book, shall we? Mark. You must just watch VODs? What kind of VODs do you watch? Let's see. I'm lost. Where was I? Together with the affordances and concern the game may have in its design. I think you like. Okay, cool. I like Pawn. Pawn sounds cool. Pawn. Pawn, patapon. Ah, that's why I like it. I love patapon. I never play it. No, actually, I played it for like a little bit in someone's place. What do you call it? A portable PlayStation. Shit, I feel so old now. It's mostly not because of oldness, but rather of digital divide. I doesn't really have access to those technology. It's what do you call it? Playable. What? PSP. What's PSP? PlayStation Portable. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I played in someone PSP back then. PlayStation Portable. Cool. And like play for a little bit, and I absolutely love it. And try to find the game anywhere else, but I don't find it. So yeah, I gave up. And here we are. I'm still thinking of playing that game later on. On. And I'm still lost right here. I arrive at this part, right? The player and community were sure responsible, and that was which part of the book was that? Oh, this one. Okay. A player is responsible for acts in her game, for the way she behaves, and for what she makes of a game in her experience of it. The ethical issues that a game can create are the responsibility of the player to the extent that the game designers have allowed players to create and afford their own values in the game. Like the horror indie games Let's Play, I've been trying to catch up with these streams too, but I don't know where to start. I just delisted the stream, so yeah, I'm not sure if I should listed it or not. That's the problem. Like, oh gosh, I don't know if people are interested in this, so that's why they listed it. Like, you can still see it through. You can still watch it, but like the link is not available. Unless you have a link, actually. Yeah. I don't know whether or not I should show it or not. Horror indie game Let's Play. Let's go. I should start going back to. Oh my god, I've been trying to go back to like uploading those as well, but at the same time, I've been so busy because I'm starting to study again a lot, and also my sleep schedule is fucked. I've been trying to. I'm thinking of trying melatonin to maybe helps me sleep better. But yeah, basically, my sleep time becomes 8 hour plus because I'm trying to sleep for 8 hours at least. But it combines also with the inability to fall asleep and stuff like that. So yeah. This is not to take away the importance of the design affordances, because the player as a subject is to some extent conditioned by those affordances. In other words, the design is relevant from this perspective because the game should foster the development of the player virtues. If it doesn't, from a virtue ethic perspective, we will be talking about an unethical game. So yes, Miguel talks about unethical games. That's the writer of this book, which is titled The Ethics of Computer Games. Miguel talks about an ethical game, but he doesn't talk about unethical affordances and non-ethical affordances, which I just created. No worries, I assume he does not talk about it unless he did mention it. No worries, there's already a huge backlog of videos to catch up on. Ooh, spicy, what videos? The moral maturity of players and the way they relate as such to the game play an important role as well. And the way, what is the way they relate? It's moral maturity, yeah? Players have to develop virtues in order to become good players and make the games good. That's interesting, actually. Develop virtues in order to become good players. Yes, I've considered this. This is what has been talked about, but I didn't really notice. And make the games good. And make the games good as well. Ah, okay. The games good as well part is interesting. By being part of a historical game community, and by playing games, players develop this moral sense of playing, creating the ludic phronesis that determines the ethics of games. This phronesis is created through time, which is one of the reasons why not every game is suitable for every player. Players have to develop the moral maturity to understand the specifics of a game. I will create it through time. Oh wait, create it through time, not with time? Yeah, it's different. Ethical constraints like what? MMO ecosystems? Ethical constraints can exist in a lot of different forms. Mostly you can divide it into two: the rules of the game and then the fiction of the game, the game world. How it, for example, the rules of the game, like what do you call it? In the game called 13, which Miguel quotes in his book, there's a hidden rule, not hidden rule, but like it doesn't directly get stated to the player. Hey, you cannot shoot the cops, but or maybe they do tell you that. But like when you try to shoot the cops, it basically makes you game over. That's an ethical affordances constraints in the rule of the game. Or for example, in Half-Life, even though Half-Life 1 or 2, it doesn't allow you to shoot NPCs. It doesn't like directly say to you, hey, don't do that, hey, shits, or stuff like that. Based on already on the rules, there's a baked-in ethical affordances constraints that exist. You cannot do this. And then, what else? And then the game fiction as well. That's the game fiction has like ethical constraints, like in the world of like in this world of peacefulness, we shouldn't do this or that. That's what the game world says. But then you check the rule and it's not coherent. Like, oh yeah, the game is supposed to be peaceful, and then you can kill a bunch of people. Question marks? Yeah, but how do those justify spending money, lol? Unless I'm understanding. No, there's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing justifying spending money. Question mark? No. No, in fact, I will argue against spending money, and Miguel will probably argue, even though he doesn't talk about those. I will assume he will argue against monetization system, and especially predator monetization system, because he's in a talk, in a lecture, right? I have the audio lecture of it, and I listened to it, and he was criticizing about how company tries to gamify work, which is like terrible. Oh no, we have went past that. We are now talks about. I'm now reading other parts of the books because that's what I'm doing, reading the books. But yes, if we are talking about the monetary ethics, it's actually unethical. Miguel doesn't say that, by the way. Miguel doesn't say that. This is me saying this. It's an unethical constraints and affordances created by the developer. Predator monetization system, especially. Which tries not justify, but rather behaviorally engineer us to purchase those, which is you could say unjustifiable actually. Become good players and makes the game good. I'm lost. Where was I? There it is. By being part of historical game community and by playing games, players develop this moral sense of playing, creating the ludic phronesis that determines the ethics of games. This phronesis is created through time, which is one of the reasons why not every game is suitable for every player. Through time, not with time. I don't know, maybe I'm just like delving too deep into semantics. I don't really like to use that word because first, I don't actually understand it well. What the hell semantics mean? There's a lot of people that throws the word semantics, and I understand it a little, but I don't understand it fully or understand it a lot. So, but yes, through time, not with time, because as you can see, there's a lot of people that have lived long enough, and oh boy, they're fucking evil. Which is one of the reasons why not every players have to develop the moral maturity to understand the specifics of a game and how to interpret them. You should probably write this actually. Phronesis is created through time, which is one of the reasons why not every game is suitable for every player. Players have to develop the moral maturity to understand the specifics of a game and how to interpret them. Given that a game's ethics are partially dependent on the player's ethically interpreted actions, yes, it is of utmost importance that these players present moral maturity so that the game becomes an actually good ethical computer game. Cool. The ethics of computer games is dependent on the ethics of player because the player are the ethical centers of the ludic hermeneutic circle. Without a player, a game doesn't really exist. Yes, it exists as an object, but who cares if no one plays it, right? And it doesn't fully exist. It doesn't fully realize itself as a game if nobody plays it, and there will be no what do you call it? No hermeneutic circle happening, which is the player playing the game, interpreting the game, and then from those interpretation, it returns to the player, rewire their understanding, and back and forth like that. A good computer game is that which fosters virtuous players, a game designed to create player subjects who can understand and develop their ethical values, and where those values can be reflected. By the way, game having an ethical affordances doesn't mean that the game is ethical, as far as I understand. As far as I think about it, not as I understand, because I don't think Miguel mentions about those actually in this book. So we could bring maybe there's games with unethical affordances, like predatory monetization, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole game itself is unethical. But probably more leaning to the unethical. This is great through the time in which one of the games for every player. Lost again. The player is responsible for becoming a virtuous player that the game is designed to encourage. The virtue ethics perspective on the ethics of computer games puts players in the center of the picture by expanding the presence and importance of ethical norms and experience with the ludic phronesis, the capacity to morally interpret the act of playing from a perspective derived from previous experience and belonging to a game community. And we are entering the limitations of the virtue ethics approach. Okay, and what is the limitation, Miguel? While virtue ethics seems quite fit for explaining the ethics of computer games from a player perspective, it presents some limitations that have to be taken into consideration. The strongest problem has to do with the importance given to the community. I refers to that a lot. I'm pretty sure I refers to that a lot. Like, where was it? Yeah, community, blah blah blah, community, blah blah blah. I talks about that a lot. Why do we have to follow the community? The whole topic seems very complicated for something that most players don't think about much. Yes, this topic is mostly for academics, of course, to analyze players, the existence of players, of course, the ontology of player. And Miguel concludes that the ontology of players is that they exist in a ludic hermeneutic circle. That we as players exist in that ludic hermeneutic circle. That this is how we play a game and stuff like that. Like, when was the last time a game has made you rethink whether or not it's okay to engage with it? That's the thing. Then the game is it's not ethically relevant. You know, Miguel is saying, hey, this is how a game is possibly designed, and there's games that are there's games with ethical affordances, and there's game which just not ethically interesting because it doesn't have any ethical affordances, and there's just unethical games because it's terrible. So yeah, when you play a lot of games, but the games that you play the most are games that doesn't really spark ethical thinking, it doesn't really make sense. You can see this mostly in like when you play Undertale, it sparks, right? When you play a game like maybe Missile, even the morality here is not just like good or evil, but also the spark of thought of like how to live, how to shits like that. Okay, not how to shits, how to live, how to see the experience of other, how to empathize a lot of things. But Miguel, of course, talks about virtue ethics for this one, which he will then explain the limitation and expands upon it with informational ethics later. Make sense, but feels a bit removed from how developers and players think. Not exactly. Like Miguel have already explained, right? There's unethical games, there's non-ethical games, and no, Miguel doesn't say there's non-ethical games. So that's a term that I made up. But yeah, there's unethical games and there's ethical games, and Miguel already explained how developer can develop ethical games, which sparks player folks and makes them think about the game, which is true. It exists. And there's unethical games, which is just like meh. It doesn't even like. We just play the game like, okay. Miguel doesn't mention anything about non-ethical game, which I will probably add if I'm writing this. But such is the reality. You know, I'm saying it's not removed. It's actually how it is. Like if you play a lot of Call of Duty, probably mostly you wouldn't really think about shits because it's not really designed as an ethical experience. It doesn't really consider shits like that. And on the contrary, Call of Duty nowadays mostly are designed with unethical affordances inside it. The player. But also that player is embodied being. Miguel also talks about how players are embodied being. Like we are being with cultural baggage, you know, shits like that. We do not just like play the game and like a mindless drone that turns off our mind and then affected by the whole game. Like we're playing, what do you call it? Like even if we are playing an unethical game, right? When we're playing Call of Duty, we do not just turn into mindless drone who are like, oh wow, shooting is so good, I should go and shoot people, which is the line of thoughts of most news media outlet back then. I don't know if news media outlet still does that nowadays. No, we are being with ethical capacity to reasons about those, and even if we play Call of Duty later, after we stop playing, we wouldn't just start thinking like, hey, I should start shooting people because we have the ethical capability to think, no, maybe I shouldn't jump into that thing. Like we were taking it for granted and then realized that all this process is happening in the background. Yes, the limitation of virtue ethics. The strongest problem has to do with the importance given to the community. Yup, it says that. Games are voluntary activity, and digital games are a voluntary activity that depends on access to a computer and in some cases to internet connections. Are we going to dive into digital device stuff? The material conditions for playing computer games are subject to social and economic constraints. Not everybody has access to the best computer or the fastest internet connections. This is interesting. I should probably write that. Strongest problem with virtue ethics is the importance. I'm not sure if virtue ethics itself gives importance to community, or it's virtue ethics that Miguel interprets for gaming, for being a player. Because I don't remember. I should probably ask my professor about that. Have to be wait, what? Given to the community. I was lost. Games are voluntary activity. The material conditions for playing computer games are subject to social and economic constraints. Yeah, shit. Yeah, shits like this, like gamers doesn't really think about, like you may be like going around the stores and see like, oh shit, I really want to play the game, but it's expensive. It's a problem of it's a social and economic constraints problem. Not everybody has access to the best computer or the fastest internet connections. Furthermore, not everybody has time to spare participating in game forums because of the limitation of their connections. Therefore, putting so much responsibility on the community may give rise to some problems. Some problems. I believe the most relevant among this is related to the constitution of the community. If the community is comprised exclusively of those who can afford to log onto the internet regularly and or spend a vast amount of time participating in the common creation of the game culture, yeah, like regional pricing and other things, yep. If the community is comprised exclusively of those who can afford to log onto the internet regularly and or spend a vast amount of time participating in the common creation of game culture, then there may be a silent webless majorities that do not follow the values of the community, therefore distorting the values of the game as they can be perceived. So you could say that the values of the game community can be distorted by the what? By those who have more access to internet, time to spend, and what? Access to internet, time to spend, and better machine to handle data exchange. Miguel doesn't write this. This is me thinking myself. That's why I added the square bracket. That is, the values of a game as deduced from its community may only be the values of an elite group with time and technical knowledge and capacities. So yeah, you gotta think about that sometimes when you start like you join a community, or maybe you join a Discord community. The community, in this sense, is not just a group or community that you chat around with, but also like the fanzine you read, like the fiction you read, that like fan fiction that people write or stuff like that. Those are like parts of the community as well, and you have to think of yourself. Hey, maybe just maybe that there are some other things that is happening in the background, and that the values that I have right now that are not that I no sorry the values that I took from the community are not as rigid as it seems, and there's possibilities for others. This is perhaps the most important ethical dilemma computer games can face from a virtue ethic perspective. These are participative systems because players actually have a large degree of effect on how the game must be played. But the fact that the design and mechanics of the game are out of reach and the developer ultimately have control over the game leads to the discarding of co-participation in creation of the actual game design or game object. Game communities solve this problem by being creative and productive, adjusting which their imagination and their values to the close framework in which they were created. But if a minority of users create these communities, then that elite dictates the values of the game, forcing other players to accept values they may not endorse, but which they have to accept due to material constraints. I'm not sure about accepting due to the material constraints, actually. But yeah, I understand it. You know what? Maybe not due to material constraints, but rather which is caused by the material. Yeah. Whatever. I'm trying to understand this better. Sorry. System because players are project and not have an entire system. Games are participative. Participative. That's not how you write participative. I gave up. Systems, because players have a large degree of effect on how the game must be played. The most prominent example will be cheating. Like that's why cheating are mostly not good. People don't like it. But the fact that it's an Galaxy game are original from gaming is gonna appreciate. But the fact that the design mechanics of the game are out of reach and the developers holding the control of the game is discarding of co-participation in creation of the actual game design again. Yes. So we're saying. So they were saying what? This one. Players are not directly involved with game development. Yeah? Is that what Miguel tries to say? That's true, you see the response to region lock game change a lot whenever they get released worldwide. I can imagine how different things would have been for the Mother series if 3 was localized. Ooh, yeah. That's a good one, actually. That's a good one. I didn't really think that one about the region lock games, actually. Yeah, because the perception and the response changed, right? So people who have access to it first, and in this sense that Miguel argues, economic advances, economic advantages, yeah, not advances, has better chance to define and perceive the game first, unlike other people. But in this case of like original lock games, it's not. Is it about economics? Yeah, maybe it's a little about economics because the developers said, yeah, you know what, I'll release this because I don't have much economics power to bargain it in to the whole part of the world. But also, it's mostly of a social stuff, which Miguel also mentioned, of course. But he mostly talks about the economic part. This limitation needed to be mentioned here as evidence that I am not arguing for an exclusive virtue ethics explanations of the ethic of computer games. Virtue ethics provides answer to those ethical issues in digital games related to players, player behavior, and the role and importance of ethical practice alone or with other players in the context of a game. Provides answer to those ethical issues in digital games related to players. So yeah, even if you're playing an ethical game, you will still argue about whether or not cheatings are allowed. You would still talk whether or not, hey, can I rate this player farm? Hey, is it allowed to shoot? Is it allowed to camp when playing Counter-Strike? Shits like that, And the role of virtue ethics provides an answer for those ethical issues in digital games related to players, player behavior, and the role and importance of ethical practice alone or with other players in the context of a game. But its scope is limited, and it can only explain to a certain extent the ethics of computer games. As ethicists and players, it is our task to point out the limitations and formulate what may be developed as solutions. Such formulations are beyond the scope of this book, but they must be mentioned for the sake of completeness in this virtue ethics approach to the ethics of computer games. So, no, it's mostly not detached. It's just a mention of like how the reality works. That's how it is possible, and for us to speak about all these things. What makes us able to do so? How it actually works, yes. 4.2 Information Ethics and Computer Games. And now we are diving into information ethics. I like that. I forget a lot about what Miguel talks about information ethics. So far, the computer games centric analysis presented this book could still be applied with a few changes to any type of games. Yes? Nevertheless, I've stated that my main interest is the ethic of computer games. I should probably write ethical. Actually, I've already written it. I've already written that exactly here. Yeah, it can also result in an abrupt stop of the ludic hermetic ludic process. I stated that my main interest is the ethic of computer games, especially in the perspective of computer ethics. Virtue ethics has been successfully applied in that field, and I have argued that it is also a useful framework when analyzing computer game. Still, it is of interest to apply a philosophical ethical theory that is related to the ethical problems created or changed by the use of computers and digital. Sorry, my throat. Still, it is of interest to apply a philosophical ethical theory that is related to the ethical problems created or changed by the use of computer and digital systems of information. Here's the part that I don't really understand. What's the difference between virtue ethics and information ethics on this one, other than the whole theory itself? Virtue ethics talks about the ethics that are created from experiencing the game, yes, and the game community, while information ethics talks about the ethical issues, problems that are created or changed by the use of computers and digital systems. Okay, cool. Ethical problems created or changed by the use of computers and digital systems of information. Well, virtue ethics talks about ethical problems that are created or changed by experiencing a game. Cool. I'm going to take a small break to actually wake someone up because they need to catch up something. So, BRB. How do I go back to the screen and pause for a little bit? Just a little bit. Okay, Mike, let's continue, shall we? I don't really think about that, actually. I'm gonna take note of that one that you just said. Where was it? Much degree in effect system given to the community. Let's see. I'm just gonna take note of that. Regional lock games can create differing what values. There we go. Bingo. Creator of change. The theory is information ethics, which provides an alternative reference framework that both places computer games in the tradition of computer ethics and can be applied to the analysis of the ethics of computer games both as objects and as experience of an ethical agent. The The theory is information ethics, which provides an alternative reference framework that both places computer games in the tradition of ethics and can develop to last. Wait, so computer ethics still can talks about games in the sense of experiencing it. Information ethics, yeah. So what's the difference with it? The base difference with it with information ethics, the virtue ethics and information ethics. Where does it the domain we discuss provides alternative reference framework. I guess it both deals with the same region then, the same domain actually. The same domain? Question mark. Information ethics provides an alternative reference framework that both places computer games in the tradition of computer ethics and can be applied to the analysis of the ethics of computer games both as objects and as experiences of an ethical agent, both as an object and as ethical experiences, because games are both an object and experience. Games is an object as a design object, of course, like that just exists, like the CD before you play it, and as experience when you start playing the game. Information ethics has the potential to cover the analysis of most of the elements that make computer games ethically relevant, from design of the game system and game world to the implementation of community creation and individual behavior of players in the information-rich environments of computer games. As such, it is a core component of the ethical framework. I will present in later stages of this book. Okay. That make computer games ethically relevant, from the design of the game, from the system and game world to the implications of community creation and individual behaviors of players in the information-rich environments. That's not how you write Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not. There we go. Environments of computer games. It's the core concept. A core component, not core concept. Framework Miguel proposes later. Okay, key concepts and method of information ethics. The ethical theory I have chosen to represent a closer computer ethic perspective. This is a closer computer ethic perspective compared to virtue ethics, I assume, when Miguel says that. Is information ethic as defined by Luciano Floridi, Jeff Sanders, and others. Ethics as defined by Luciano Floridi, Jeff Sanders, and others? Who's others? I don't know who's other is. Information ethics is, there's a footnote probably, that's what do you call it, right? Not, what do you call it? Footnote is when it's at the bottom, like, it's endnote. Yeah, there's an endnote that probably mentions a lot of it. Information ethics is a radical perspective on computer ethics that takes into account the nature of computing as well as the presence of human and software agents in digital environments. Why is it a radical perspective, though? It's a radical perspective on computer ethics that takes into account the nature of computing as well as the presence of human and software agents in digital environments. Furthermore, it shares with virtue ethics a certain constructivist approach, so it's also a constructivist approach. A constructivist approach means that the ethics are developed through experience, through the ethics is not like inherently exist. You must like live and experience and shits to develop it. Let me just grab like a Wikipedia definition for a better one. It's a theory that suggests that learners do not passively acquire knowledge through direct instruction. Instead, they construct their understanding through experience and social interaction. What do you know? Actually, a bit similar. Okay. If my goal is to provide an answer to computer games ethic that draws on the common grounds of those theories, but also to use and exploit their specific conceptual strengths. In Floridi and Sanders' words, information ethics is an okay, I should write this. Floridi. Sanders' words. Information ethics is an environmental macroethics. Where are we going with this? Oh my god, this is horrible. Based on the concept of data entity rather than life. If I remember correctly, they are going to talk about how we need to respect the existence of data entity. Not respect the boundary of data entity, as far as I remember. And the rather than life part is important because it doesn't just put like, hey, this thing doesn't need to be living to be like protected or something. It can be protected because it is important or something like that, which I forget what the reasoning is. For example, your social security number. It's not alive, but it exists in this whole space of thing. So it should have its protection, and it should have protections against like just being publicly being open. This is also white trademark, is this? I think I'm not sure. I'll have to check later. Information ethic defines itself as a macroethical approach. Why is it a macroethical approach? That's what I'm wondering right now. A framework that expands the responsibility of moral agents by defining existence as informational existence. We are all data entities. And by all, right here, it doesn't mean just like living beings, like I've said. It also means stuff that I forget. Self as a macro. I still don't understand the macroethical part though. Approach. A framework that expands the responsibility of moral agents by defining existence as informational existence. We are all data entities. What is you know what? I'm just gonna search Google macroethical. Macroethical. What is macroethicals? Macroethics, from the Greek blah blah blah, meaning larger, and ethos, meaning character, is a term coined to distinguish large-scale ethics from individual ethics, or microethics. Okay, so microethics, individual ethics, is the ethics. So virtue ethics are microethics, you could say? I'm not sure. Is virtue ethics microethics? I don't think they really talk about it a lot. Yeah, I know. I don't find immediate answer for that. Microethics deals with large-scale issues, often in relation to other principles or normative rules to guide action. Such as what? philosopher Edmund Husserl, and Immanuel Levinas. Husserl is the teacher of Heidegger. Yeah, Levinas. They're all phenomenologists, if I remember correctly. Husserl and Levinas is based on the recognition that most ethical decisions in everyday life are not taken on the basis of explicit rational argument or calculation, but rather occur in a continuous flood of relationship and dialogues. That's why it's an informational existence as well. Because ethical reasoning, ethical, wait, question mark? Where was I? Ethical decisions, that's what we say. In everyday life are not taken on the basis of explicit, not on the basis of explicit rational argument or calculation, which a lot of people do in ethics. Like, people say that, hey, yeah, morality is what you think it is, but then microethics comes in with, hey, phenomenology comes in and they say, hey, you don't really exist without everything around you. You know, you're interconnected to everything. There's a background and a horizon. I forget. I only remember the term background and horizon. What exactly it is, I don't remember. That you live in. Argument or calculation, but rather occur in a continuous flux. So it's not disconnected. Yeah. Of relationship, and dialogues. I don't know when the dialogue part comes in, so interesting. Let's see. Where was I? We're all data entities. That's the part I mean. Every biological life is a data entity, but there are more data entities than life forms. That's why they say rather than life. There are artificial data entities that needs to be respected and that can be harmed. So artificial data entities. There are biological life as data entity, but also artificial data entities. That's what's being said here. Cool. Or that need to be respected and can be harmed. And that can be harmed. For instance, databases containing our credit card data and records are data beings that need to be preserved from harm. There we go, I already said that. Social security number, for example. Credit databases, though, it's a databases containing our credit card data and records are data beings that need to be preserved from harm. These data entities share an environment that needs to be ethically protected. What does it mean? Environment that needs to be ethically protected. Interesting. These data entities. Why is the environment needs to be protected? Share an environment needs to be ethically protected. Information ethics expand our moral universe to include everything informational, so not just living beings, of course, and the relation that we establish and that are established with us. Furthermore, information ethics is an architectural ethics. I'm not sure what it is. An ethics addressing not only the users but also the creators and designer of the infosphere. Not only the users. I'm trying to think of something. Not only the users, but also the creators and designers of the infosphere, of the people who created the infosphere of the government? I will assume government immediately. I need to write this down. Information ethics expands or moral universe to include everything informational and the relations that we establish and that are. I gotta go now, unfortunately. See you next stream. Yeah, thank you for attending. See ya. There's going to be a stream tomorrow as well. Same. That are established with us. Furthermore, information ethics are architectural. Is an architectural ethics. An ethics addressing not only the users, but also the creators and designers of the infosphere. I will assume if the infosphere was designed horribly, it will be. Hey, yeah, there's nothing to be protected here. The creator and designers are responsible as fuck for this. The infosphere is an ecological environment of informational agents, patients, and their mutual relations. What is patience here? Where does this term come from? And what? Environment, social agents, patients, and their mutual relations. All elements of the infosphere are in one way or another mutually connected. Precisely like in an ecosystem. And the balance of this system can be affected, leading to what? Leading to harm and thus defining what unethical actions or relations are. Information ethics helps a lot more in explaining predatory monetization system probably, better compared to virtue. Now, virtue ethics also explains it. So, like, community doesn't really like it. Okay, cool. Community doesn't really like it. As a player, as an embodied being, you have shits to pay, bills to pay. You don't need the games to become much more wanting for you to spend shits. Blah 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 blah. I'm lost. As collection of Russians are. Can you all hear that? Yeah. I'm just making sound with my mouth. There we go. There. The infosphere is defined as a context constituted by a whole system of. So much definition. The whole system of information objects, including all agents and patients. Agnes, why do I keep reading Agnes? I want to sneeze. I want to sneeze so bad. Just don't sneeze. Context. There's one as a context constituted by a whole system of information objects, including all agents and patients, messages, their attributes, and mutual relation. Oh no! So the interconnectedness, so the interconnectedness of them all, interconnectivities of them all. Shit. The infosphere is a key concept in information ethics and make clear where we can find data beings, how the relation constitute their ontologies, and what can harm them. constitute their ontologies and what can harm them. Comedy games are infospheres in specific level of analysis or level abstractions. Ooh, interesting. Bingo, I already guessed that, I guess. Infospheres in a specific level of analysis or level of abstraction. A game like World of Warcraft, a game like WoW, it's written as WoW, right? Like that, with a small o, which I will analyze in more detail in Chapter 5, is an infosphere. What do you mean level of abstraction? Specific level of analysis and abstraction. The product, the developers, the server, and their technologies, the players, and the online resources. Technology, the players, and the online resources. But a specific server is also an infosphere depending on the level of abstraction necessary for the analysis. Ooh, interesting. Can even be an infosphere. What does level of abstraction mean here? So, on the level of abstraction necessary for the analysis. What does level of abstraction means? Probably it means to the level of folks that you want to think about, how much you want to analyze it. That doesn't really explain a lot, but I'm trying to grasp things that I could grasp. And that's good. Infosphere could include the player versus player server where played, as well as the Discord forum hosted on the official webpage, for example. Oh. Where Miguel played, as well as the internet forums hosted on the official webpage. How about Discord server that are not official? That's an infosphere, right? I'm not sure. Other instances may need to define different operational infospheres, always depending on what is relevant for the research question to be explained. That's what level abstraction means. What is analysis? Is it not analysis? Am I crazy? It doesn't try to correct me, so I'm scared right now. Operational infospheres. Always depending on what is relevant for the research question to be explained. Level of abstraction? Information ethics takes into account the necessity of operating within different informational perspective by this one, what is relevant for the research question to be explained, by using the concept of level of abstraction and gradient of abstraction. What does they both mean? Perspectives. By using the concepts of level of abstraction and gradient of abstraction. The use of this concept is closely linked with the ontological nature of information ethics. Also linked with the ontological nature of information ethics. According to this theory, data beings are capable of agenthood. agency. I love that. I think that a term that's loved to be being used in a lot of things study. Beings are capable of agenthood. Everything can become an agent. Everything can become an agent. Okay, cool. There's a formal approach is needed to specify what being present agenthood under which circumstances. Is needed to specify. So yeah, there's a need to specify what is relevant for the research question. It's needed to specify what beings present agenthood under which circumstances? What circumstances are we talking about? What kind of infospheres are we talking about? The method of abstraction from which the concept of level of abstraction and gradient of abstraction are taken. Gradient abstraction. Miguel love to does this shit. Just mention random words and you don't know shits about it unless you have studied before about other things. Are taken. Provides a serious logical framework. Yes, because with this framework, we can really define of like we can really talk about the infosphere because like what kind of infosphere we're talking about. We need a scope and the level of abstraction and the gradient of abstraction, the method of abstraction, which with its level of abstraction and gradient abstraction helps. Framework that allows a clear specification of what reality is being observed and how it is being observed. Scope. Cope. Yeah, I'm coping. Yay, by 230, fighting for my life. A level of abstraction is a finite but non-empty set of observed. Abstraction is a finite but non-empty set of observables. It's a finite but non-empty set of observables, so this is the finite set of it that I want. That's a level of abstraction. Hey, this is what I want to do. It's a finite set, so just this all. Which are expected to be the building blocks in a theory characterized by their very choice. In the level of abstraction determines the features of the observed objects we are focusing on. The whole sets of different observables used in the research yields the gradient of abstraction, a way of varying the level of abstraction in order to make observation at differing levels of abstraction. So yeah, maybe speaking about computer games. Speaking about computer games, there's different gradient of abstraction. You can talk about the PvP server, obviously, like Miguel have already explained, instead of the whole game. Yields the gradient of abstraction, a way of varying the level of abstraction in order, I'm getting my ass kicked, to make observations at differing levels of abstraction. For example, Miguel PvP server. Information ethics is an object-oriented approach to ontology. What does it mean? I hate this. There's so much thing to write. Ethics has an object-oriented approach to ontology. What does object-oriented approach means? An object is informationally, and thus ontologically, an object is informationally defined by the objects with which it constitutes the infosphere. So yeah, an object is informationally defined by other things that exist with it. So yeah, okay, and it's ontology as well, of course. Then the relations, capacities, and possibilities. By using the phenomenological concept of system and relating this to the procedure of concept of system and relating this to the procedure of information describe a moral universe in which not only is no being alone, but every being is indeed related. Morally related to other beings because in their well-being is connected to the welfare of the whole system. Yippee! How is this different from ecological ethics? Does ecological ethics even exist? Am I crazy? I'm fighting for my life here. By using the phenomenological concept of system and relating this to the procedures of information, constitution, and exchange, computer systems, information ethics describes a moral universe in which not only is no being alone, but every beings is indeed related. How is this different from all those eco-conscious ethics? What's the example of it? I forgot. The thing I could define it as like hey, everything is connected. But sure, there's. I guess they just don't really consider data ethics. I guess. Yippee! Related. Morally related to other beings because in their well-beings is connected to the welfare of the whole system, including data agents. Data agents, yes. Agents are systems that affect larger systems. What? Are systems that affect larger systems. So an agent is a system already with their actions affect. It's since you're part of the system. Since you're a data agent and you're part of the system, and the system cannot exist without the welfare of everything, you're basically an agent and you're affecting the larger system. This is basically micro and macrocosmos. God damn it. I hate this. Affecting themselves as well. Basically, macrocosmos. Since other systems are procedurally and informationally related to them. Information ethics consider moral actions, and information ethics considers moral actions on information process. Why is that? It's worth pointing out that the agent and the patient are in this level of abstraction, not necessarily human. Information ethic allows an operative level of abstraction without human agency. So moral actions and information. Why? I'm sort of pushing that. Consider moral action as an information process. I think consider moral action as an information process. It is an informational process because when we do something, it affects the whole information, and therefore it's an information. Okay, you know what? Yeah, it's an when an agent does something, it affects the flow of information, and thus is a process of information. Information ethics allows an operative level of abstraction without human agency. In fact, information ethics suggests artificial agency as a key element for understanding of moral information ethics suggests artificial. This is not talking about artificial intelligence, by the way. It could include this artificial intelligence, but not necessarily talk about that as a key element for the understanding of morality in the universe. Stand ready for my arrival, worm. My worm is standing ready. Also of interest for this ethical framework is Florida and considers the concept of homopoiety. So many things that I need to remember. Ethical framework is Floridi and Sanders. Concept of homo poeticus. So we have homo ludens, we have homo poeticus, we have homo social. What the fuck? The Aristotle? What do you say? Homo what? Zone polygon. Homo homini lupus, yeah. Because central to information ethics anthropology. I mean called BRB. Okay, Mike, sorry. Ooh, probably gonna end the stream soon because I need to shoot six. What does homopoeticus mean? Homopoeticus mean? Homopoeticus? Homopoeticus. Nope, no Wikipedia page for that. I'm fucked. Oh. No Wikipedia page for this, so I'm fucked. That's fucked. This is the definition of the author. Yeah, this is not helpful. I'm dead. So, anthropology. Both information ethics and virtue ethics are yeah, but I already know that. But while the latter could be accused of promoting an anthropocentric approach, why is it anthropocentric approach? The former can be accused, yeah, takes into account a much wider system. Information ethics expand the ethical universe, increasing the degree to which we are morally responsible for the world we live in. The ethical universe, increasing the degree to which we are morally responsible for the world we live in. According to information ethics, the moral scope has to be expanded to take into consideration any informational being that is present and has importance for the well-being of the infosphere. Ethics. The moral scope has to be expanded to take into consideration any informational being that is present and has importance for the well-being of the infosphere. In infosphere, from our as human agents, we have the task, the ethical duty for using and producing virtuous environment. Where does that come from? Why does that furthermore come from? As human agents, we have the task, the ethical duty of using and producing virtuous environments. Where does that come from? Where does the super ethical responsibility comes from? Maybe you are gonna say that it's because we as a human being are sentient and have the ethical capacity to think, so we are more responsible. For the environments to be ethically sound, we need to be ethically responsible as users and producers. Responsible as users and producers. And there we go. We have reached 10 page exactly. So thank you all for attending the stream. Is there someone in the stream right now? I was about to end the stream. But yes, I gotta go because I need to do some stuff. But it's close anyway to the usual time I end streams, which is 2:30 or 3 hours. And we have reached 10 page and I need to do some stuff. Thank you all for attending. See you all later then in the next stream, which is tomorrow. Probably, I hope around the same time. Like, it's not defined. It could be less, but it could be more. I hope it's around this 6 to 8 hours of around this. But yes, that's all. Thank you all. Bye-bye.